Hey everyone, welcome to Pipes, Tobacco, and Whiskey. So as promised, we just recently went to a club meeting of the North Texas Briar Club. It was held Saturday, April 24th at the Tobacco Cabana in Cedar Hill, Texas. And we had a really good turnout. We had, I would say probably about a dozen guys that were there. And we were able to have a nice discussion about multiple topics relating to pipes and pipe tobacco. Before you get into this video, I want you to know that the sound quality wasn't as good as I had hoped. There were a lot of factors that played into that. Partly it was because I have, a pretty low budget regarding camera and microphone setup. But also the room itself was pretty large and lots of noise going on with air conditioners and air cleaners and doors opening and closing and people in the shop and things like that. So I tried to boost the volume quality as much as I could. So just a heads up, you might have to turn up your listening device, the volume on this, just to be able to hear some of it. And also, you might want to consider using earbuds or something like that to listen to it. But there was so much great information from a lot of guys that have a ton of experience. And I just felt like you need to hear it. You need to get out there. Now, we recorded probably about 2 hours worth of information. And there's no way that I was going to post all of that in one setting. So I'm going to break these up, and we'll probably have about 4 different videos from this session. A lot of information to share with you guys. This first part today, part 1, is going to cover a couple of topics, including how to rehydrate your tobaccos, what are some best tobaccos to cellar, and methods that you use to cellar, favorite blends to cellar, and also there was some talk about how to speed up the aging process. We also talked a little bit about different lighters, which ones maybe were the best ones to use and which ones to stay away from, also versus using matches. So I hope you enjoy this. Again, I apologize for the quality of sound. That's something that me and my boys will be working on to get better when we start doing more events like this. But for now, I just wanted to make sure that I shared some of this information with you because it's really good stuff, and I thought that you might like to hear it. Again, if you've got any questions or comments, anything that you might suggest, topics to cover in the future, leave that information underneath this video, and we will definitely add it to our list and get to it. So here it is. This is the first part of the discussions with the North Texas Briar Club from the Tobacco Cabana in Cedar Hill, Texas. Thanks for watching, guys. If you come across a tobacco that needs rehydration, what methods do you normally use to kind of help revitalize your tobaccos? And anybody just jump right in.
I've got 2 things I use typically. There's the little Bovedas, little small ones. Drop one of those in there. And another thing that Jeff Cloak turned me on to is Raw. The company that makes like rolling papers makes little terracotta discs. Soak those in distilled water and you can drop them in. Does the same thing as a Boveda. Brings it back. Really pretty nice.
Those Bovedas, they come in different levels of hydration.
Right. And that's worth paying attention to because they're made for cigars, and cigars use a higher humidity than pipe tobacco does.
Yeah.
So what percentage do you use?
Unless you're like the 65 or 63.
Yeah, the lower is the
there.
better.
Yeah, if you're using the 70s, you're into cigar humidity. The lowers in the 60s, and I think they even make some 50s for herbage. You can use those, and they work great, and they last forever.
Old school is apple slice.
Apple slice.
Slice of apple. That was, I mean, some of the old pipe smokers that I had. You know, that was their standard thing. They take a slice of apple and throw it in with the tobacco, and it gives the moisture, and it also imparts just a little, you know, just that, just that hint of taste to it.
So it does transmit some of the flavor to
It
the
does.
tobacco.
Well, it adds sugar too, so not much, negligible, but
A little bit. Yeah. The other thing is and I've done this with cigars and pipe tobacco. You've got the good Ziploc plastic bag that you're keeping it in, and it's amazing. Your breath is 70% humidity.
that is an old trick. If you have a dry tobacco and you put it in your pipe, just cup your hand over it and breathe into the pipe bowl.
That works.
It works really well.
Yeah. What about those little silver discs
With a little
the
cardboard
clay-
segment
yeah,
inside.
With the clay things, do they work pretty well for you guys?
I've used them.
Yeah. Now I know, Colin, you have a special way of kind of doing that.
Well, take a mason jar and put your dry tobacco in that mason jar. Take one paper towel, leave it flat. Take another one, fold it up into a little square, and submerge it in distilled water. And bring it out. Just get it wet, but not soppy. Open the jar. Put the wet paper towel on the flat one, and then lay it in there. It's where it's holding it in the jar because of the lid. So you're screwing the lid onto that paper towel between the jar and the lid, and in between that is that wet square of paper towel, and let it set overnight.
Okay. So it's
Maybe a
never
day.
in contact with it.
Never in
it's just
contact
suspended.
with it, but it's in the jar. Do that for a day, day and a half. Come back, you'll find it's dry. Do it again. Same paper towel, get it wet, put it back in there. After 2 times, that tobacco will be just right. I've done that numerous times now with both English, blends, Virginians, aromatics. It's not, you don't have to do that with them. You know, they have to really dry out.
How wet are you making the paper towel?
Again,
Rinsing it?
you get it soaked and then wring it out in your hand and just where it's not dripping but it's wet and put it in there. And it's very simple. It's not rocket science. It keeps the moisture directly away from the tobacco, but it has nowhere else to go in that jar now because of gravity, right? And so it will make that whole jar, and I've used it in big jars before, and a couple of times, and it works great.
So 2 things that I'm hearing about this though is we're using distilled water. Is that a big
Always.
Yes, but you can't use tap water too. I did in the pinch one time.
Well, I
No,
guess
it's
if you're
not.
doing it that way, it makes sense, right? Because it's not coming in contact, so those trace minerals aren't getting in there.
Yeah, that's the only thing about using anything else other than water is that you always have that possibility of mold.
So, and contact, and not having whatever the devices.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Has anybody ever used like square sponges, just cutting up a sponge or anything like that?
Sponges, probably everybody tells you that if you want to have something that will carry bacteria, mold, and everything bad, use a sponge. I mean, it's one of the worst things you can do. Now, another thing I've done when I used to do my Christmas blend, which was just mix of 14 different pipe tobaccos, made up half of it, and the other half was chopped up old cigars with a damage to them. To moisten that, I would throw in use Tito's vodka and mix it in just to get it to the right mixture of, and then that's it for about a week. And it just kind of fermented in there. It came out great.
Well, that's another question that I was going to ask was, has anybody ever tried to use like a bourbon or some sort of...
I've used vodka.
How much would you use?
You know what it's supposed to feel like. I mean, I would mix this stuff up in a bucket, okay? And I'm talking a big batch. And I'd pour in just enough and mix it, pour in enough until you didn't want it soggy, you didn't want it wet, but you want it where, okay, it'll pack nice, it'll burn nice still, and then I would let it sit for about a week. It seemed to mellow and age and get totally uniform throughout the sealed container.
I would.
I've used tequila, rum, bourbon, vodka, and all of them turn out fine. If you overuse it, if you over wet it, it's not a big deal. You just let it soak and saturate for, I like to do it anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. If you oversaturate it, you just lay it out on paper towels until it becomes the right moisture content. You're good to go.
I will offer one caution from my experiments in blending and topping. Higher proof is not your friend when you're doing that, because it will actually actively dry out your, because of the higher alcohol content. It'll pull that moisture out and it'll dry it out actually faster. So, as much as I love my high proof bourbon, and I do, it's not for the tobacco blends.
That's simply what it does to your body. Alcohol will dehydrate you. So
Right.
does anyone else have any other creative ways of rehydrating tobaccos?
The only other thing I'd offer is sometimes I'll have a really dry tobacco and I will make a blend. I'll blend it with something that's wetter. And you let that sit in a jar for a week or two, and that moisture will even itself out.
You can almost not go wrong with adding just a straight Virginia to something. If you're a Latakia guy, you can do that, and it adds that moisture and gets the mix a little bit more zip.
A nice gooey perique goes a long way.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that kind of what you do when you get a blend and you're like, yeah, I bought a 10 and it just didn't suit my palate.
Let me fix it.
Let me tweak that blend a little bit.
Absolutely.
That's just one of the best ways.
Okay. Well, the next topic that I had from a viewer was, what are some of the best tobaccos to summer and age, and what method would you use? Would you keep it in its tin? Would you jar it? What kind of thing would you do? So, not necessarily what brand or what kind, but maybe what type of tobacco. Virginia Periques, Latakias, whatever. What are your thoughts on that?
For my money, it's Virginia Periques. That's what ages. The Perique being, alkaline, Virginia's being acidic. They pH balance over time, and that anaerobic fermentation, you just cannot beat it in a Virginia Perique. I think Latakia blends, the Virginias start to shine, but the Latakia dies over time.
Not so much in the tin, but after you open it. So you almost have to open it and smoke it right away.
Yeah.
If it's over 7 or 8 years old.
What's a good length of time to wait for maybe a vape to fully mature?
8 to 10 years is ideal. It's just, there's something sweet that happens right around that 8-year mark with a good Virginia Perique, as long as there's enough Perique in it. Whew. It is candy, it's delicious.
And a lot of kids tell me say about how long, about 5 years?
7, I've heard 7, I don't know, I kind of disagree with that. It just depends on your palate, what you like. And you can always add a little bit of Latakia to it. The thing is, I think people forget about those English blends that get old. If they don't have enough Latakia punch to them, just throw a little loose Latakia. And you're still getting that nice aged tobacco, but you're adding a little more smoke to it.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's not missing something.
Straight Virginias? What are your thoughts on that?
Straight Virginias also do some cool things because they have such a high sugar content that what you end up with is a fermentation that's very akin to what you get in your liquor, right? Rather than a weird pH balancing thing that you get with the Perique, the Virginias, the sugars just start to break down and you get that beautiful plume that starts crystallizing, and they're delicious. Straight Virginias also age really, really well.
What about tins versus mason jars? What are your thoughts on that?
My preference is mason jars because I can trust them.
Tins for a while, but long term, basically, plastic leaves all the time. And that's another thing. I used to vacuum seal a lot of tobacco. It all dried up in 2 or 3 years. So really, the best thing you can do is let it freeze.
Are you using clear mason jars or?
Clear ones are fine. So,
Mike, I think you found the amber ones, right?
Yeah.
You're telling me about amber colored mason jars. So
they make blue ones too.
good, yeah.
And that, I suppose, if it's out.
If it's in the sunlight, yeah.
But if you got it in the dark, if you got it in your closet, it doesn't matter.
Only made
Or,
that mistake once.
Yeah. I think everybody knows that, but just in case. Take the lid off, microwave for 30 seconds, you just heat the glass up.
Empty jar.
No, I do it with tobacco in.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
then screw
That
the
doesn't
lid
dry
on
your
real
tobacco
quick.
out?
No. Not 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And it will take whatever moisture's in there and you'll see it for a second on the outside of the glass and then later on it'll be gone and walk back into the tobacco. That heat creates that vacuum. So that's you get a nice once it cools off.
So there's also I've seen controversy as to how much tobacco you should put in a mason jar. You know.
Is that the headspace question? How much headspace?
Yeah. How much airspace should you leave at the top?
I like a little bit. It helps the fermentation go do its thing.
Can you overfill it?
Suppose you could. With Virginia's, I would say that's right.
It is.
Yeah. English blends, I mean, you don't fill them up all the way anyway. You just get a massive answer. But, you know, leave a little bit. Maybe the thickness of the screw that,
Yeah.
those things.
I mean, I guess that's the question is like, what is your goal for aging, right? If you just want it to be like it is, then a vacuum is great. If you want it to change and develop, then oxygen is your friend because those microbes need those to do their thing. So with a Virginia Perique blend, I want that fermentation. I want it to develop into something different, and so therefore, vacuum is not my friend. You know, leaving it in a vacuum sealed tin doesn't. You don't change the flavor
Yeah,
over
but
time.
then you've got those tins that are 10, 12, 15 plus years old.
But they
They're all
have-
puffed up. You know,
I know,
so-
but they have to be.
But they are so good.
They are, but that's the difference between aerobic and anaerobic fermentation, right? So the tins and the vacuum tins, they're, you know, the Cornell and Deal style tins, they puff up too, right? The vacuum style tins, they don't puff up, they just break seal.
Right.
You don't want that, right? And if it doesn't break seal, you don't have something that is developed dramatically over years. But those Cornell and Deal style, you know, the bean dip tins, they work that way because they have air in them, they have headspace, and that's how they develop that way.
What's one of your favorite tobaccos to sell?
You don't laugh at me, but it's Bullseye Flake.
Yeah.
Stokeby Luxury Bullseye Flake. It's good, fresh, but give it 8 months and it suddenly changes. And you give it years and it's cheap and it's gold.
What do you think is optimal?
Honestly, anything over 3 years is great. It doesn't take long.
That tobacco is also really good baked.
Mm-hmm.
Baked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Baked for what? Baked for what?
Bake it in the oven.
Baked. I thought
Baked.
you said baked.
No.
It's baked.
No. It's hard to steak. It doesn't stand for the
Yeah.
No, baked.
Okay. Baked in the oven. So tell me a little bit about that. How do you do that?
No, there's various different ways, but you can do, what I do is 200 degrees, an hour a night for 3 nights in a row. And so, seal it, put it in the mason jar, put it in the oven, turn the oven on 200, let it go for an hour, turn it off, leave it in there. The next day, come back, turn the oven on, 200 degrees, an hour, turn it off, leave it in there. Next day, same thing. On the 4th day, go back, pull it out, unless your wife's already taken it out. And take it out, pop it in, it's changed color. It gets this nice plummy, well, that particular blend does.
It does.
You know, it goes from that various color spun disc
Just to the deep dark brown.
almost black, yes. It's, you know, and man, is it good. It artificially ages.
So yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
It's an artificial way of aging.
And it is lovely. I've heard you do the same thing in Texas on the dash.
I do that.
in the summer.
Every summer, I put a jar of something Virginia Perique in my car. I don't even have to put it in the dash. You just put it in your glove compartment. Because it's going to get to 150 degrees in your car. And every night, it does that cycle again. And you can, all summer long, I'll leave it in my car. By the time fall rolls around, all summer long. By the time fall rolls around, it's just delicious.
I've done that.
That's probably like putting 10 years on it.
Kind of is.
Okay, here's Here's a topic for discussion and debate. Lighters. Butane, Zippo. Is it worth spending the money on an old boy, or do you go with a big lighter?
Butane torch, baby, all day long.
No, do not listen to that man. That man is trying to get you in trouble.
What are your thoughts on that?
Matches.
And matches, yes, that's
After you let burn off. Don't ever light that match and just suck in. No, you don't want to do
Use
that.
those swans, those sulfurless matches.
Yeah.
Those are good. If you find an old boy that works properly, they're good. They're great, but they're temperamental.
I had somebody mention something about a match called a 3-star. You guys know that?
It's the same thing.
It's the Swan Vesta. Swan Vesta.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's not much discussion. Everybody-
I like a soft flame butane. It's easier. You can get them to go into Zippo. Like I have a vector insert for this that's really great. I like matches, but they're fussy.
You know, Zippo lighters are fine, but they're like those sulfur matches. You gotta, that taste is gonna be there for just a second.
I can't stand that thing.
And if you like it, some people do, that's fine. If not,
It doesn't bother me so much when I'm on the go. It really doesn't.
I found on Amazon an insert for, I guess it's like the Vector, it's called a Z type or something like that. And it's a soft butane, you fill it up like the regular butane lighter. And it seems to work pretty well. I mean, it doesn't have a huge charge, so you don't get like weeks and weeks and weeks out of it. But for on the go, and without that Zippo sauce, you know, it works pretty
That
well.
vector insert works
I
well.
love mine. It's a little pipe
Zippo
insert, so
lighter.
it's sideways.
Yeah.
there's
Love
some
it.
decent butane lighters that are pipe lighters that shoot to the side, you know, that are $20.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them you can refill.
This one does both the pipe and the cigar.
Yeah, like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they're $20, $30.
Yeah.
Those are fine too. I mean, you know, they're what do you call them? They're quartz or whatever. They're not flints.
Oh, those, yeah.
So they don't last forever, but they're $20. It's like,
Yeah. I bought a nice Vector pipe lighter here one time. And it served me well. It lives in my car.
yeah.
So that I always have a lighter.
Does anybody like the regular Zippo? I mean, is that what they use all the time? What about, is there is it a status thing between having a Bic and a Caribbean?
The
That's
Bic
not-
bugs me.
that's not for that.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
live smokers. We're not worried
I mean,
about status.
so, in your opinion, do they work just as well?
Hey, a Dr. Grabo smokes just as well as
That's-
if that's what you like. So
That's fair. Maker's mouth.
that's right. It's all in what you like.
Bics will ruin your pipe, the rim, if you're not careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful with flames that shoot straight up. That's
Yes.
the only.
Oh.
And that's just more of a if you've got a knockaround pipe or a corn cob or something, who cares, right? But you know, if it's something you're willing to take care of. Be careful how you use it. I noticed you use one, Tom.
Yeah, but I make sure.
But
it's
you're
right
very
in the
careful.
center.
Yeah, but I've seen guys that just, you know, I've done repairs on pipes before. People have just destroyed the tops.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, you look at it like, wow, you know, just you look. It's like-
Of course, they're usually the same guys who bang their pipe on the brick wall.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know, too.
Yeah.
But you know what? If that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
it keeps people like me in business.
Right.
Yeah, well, and I own an IM Corona, but it doesn't stay right there because I don't want to have to send it off to get repaired or whatever because things happen, you know, and that's why I carry big. Most of everything I do.
Thing. Yeah, I've had a Dunhill roller gas from the '60s that I had for forever, and then I just get nervous because it's like this is expensive and I don't want to take it. It's stupid. Just,
Yeah.
I get the Jeep. If I lose it, hey, no big deal. I'll get another one for $1.50. No big deal. And lasts forever.
I was thinking about the lighter when y'all were talking about it, and I do a lot of smoking on the porch, and at my house it's always windy. So I
Wow.
always end up finding myself using my big lighter. And I've got, I got well, I have Zippos, but every time I go to use it, it's always out of
Right.
fluid.
Well, that was my thing too. I used to use the Zippos because they wouldn't go out,
Right.
but
But then I have to fill
just
it
go
up.
out. Yeah, that's why I like the butane insert because it doesn't
Yeah.
evaporate.
And then my soft flame,
Reading-
lighter
yeah.
will not light if there's any bit of wind.
Oh,
So I end up always finding myself using the big lighter.
that's fair.
And I always keep one in my pipe roll.
All reliable. There's something to be said for it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that big insert thing I bought from Amazon, it costs like $15. It's not expensive. I have 4 iron coronavirus. There's 2 of them. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, if it works.